Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 8 breakdown for the Stage Zero Circuit Series that happened this past weekend. It was the fourth and final week of at least the circuit part, and then we have our finals this upcoming Wednesday as well. It will be live streamed on the Stage Zero YouTube as well, so make sure to go in the description, hit that subscribe button for Stage Zero. So they'd really appreciate it. It should be like a pretty tight finisher for the circuit as well, and in general. So this was a 34-person event, and we did have this top 8 here. Additionally, it was streamed on my Twitch as well, so there's a link to the VOD there in the description, as well as there is it's going to be re-uploaded. The finals are going to be re-uploaded to the Stage Zero YouTube channel as well if you guys want to see that. But going on into this, we did have in the top 8, we did have 3 Newgates, 1 Emporio, with ended up winning the event, 1 Kinemon, a Zephyr, a Trafalgar, and a Magellan. And then the total breakdown, we had 10 Newgates, which is actually a little bit less than we've been normally seeing, which is still not, like, 10 is quite a bit. 7 Kinemon, 5 Emporios, 3 Magellans, 2 Smokers, 2 Zephyrs, and then a lot of 1-ofs as well. But really, it's kind of diverse still, even though, I don't know, I still kind of like set 1 format a little bit more than kind of what set 2 format's kind of, going into. But looking at this top 8, we did get a good amount of variety, which is really cool, and it's really neat to see all these kind of other decks. Honestly, though, like most of the time, it's like Newgate versus the world, whereas you either have a good matchup against Newgate or you have a really bad time a lot of the time. But we're going to go over the top 8 list here. So we're going to do the top placing leader in each one of these archetypes. So we're going to go to our first place list. So this one is Dakota, Angeloff with their Emporio, which in our 4 weeks, we had 1 Zoro win, we had 1 Whitebeard win, and we've had 2 different Emporios win each week, which is really interesting. But Emporio is definitely a deck that rewards, I would say, a high level of play, of memorization, of knowing what's on top of your deck and making sure that you get that. So Dakota definitely showed that. I think if you see like the VOD and you see his matches, he played very, very well. He played the deck very strong. He played into his outs, and it was really, really good at kind of cutting your opponent off from resources, and really great at like slowly building a board where your opponent just had a hard time interacting with it a lot of the time. So really strong deck in a lot of ways. I don't have a lot to say about this because generically, a lot of Emporio decks just kind of look the same because you kind of run the entire archetype package. But some differences that I've seen is that so 4 Don Quixote do Flamingos, no Peronas, but this card's pretty strong at setting up the top cards of your deck. 4 Boa Hancock, which I normally don't see, but since it's a 1K, it's great. And you look at this deck, there are only the Monkey, the Emporio, and Draco Mihawk. These are just 3 cards you can't counter with, which is pretty strong for you. So no 1-drop blocker either, just deciding that the Boa is a little bit better there. And then also, the Mihawk is great. If you're able to play this card on curve, sometimes you feel like you just win because it's just a 9K. You gotta, your opponent really can't deal with easily a lot of the time, and you can just keep getting value from it too. And through the new common land, most people play like 4 or 2, so seeing 3 is a little refreshing as well. I really do like this card in the deck. Every time you play it, you feel like you're a little bit ahead in my mind, and I think that really shows. But don't have much more to say about this. This is definitely a deck that kind of more or less you have a little wiggle room for tech spaces, but definitely more of a pilot-centered deck, and I think Dakota was a really good pilot for it this weekend. So congrats again for Dakota there. And then next up we have Jonathan with our second place Kinemon, and Kinemon's really, really starting to drop off in my mind. It's a lot of people are still playing it, and like 1 or 2 people are topping with it in every event. Like the ratio to top for Kinemon is pretty abysmal in my mind. Since it was, especially like it was the second most played leader for this event and only got 1 top, which is kind of rough. And again, like generically, it keeps getting tops, but I really do wonder if it's strictly just because there are too many people for it to be playing it to almost statistically not get there. But some choices for this one. I don't think Toki's generally needed every time, but I do like this as a blocker. Most of the time it works out. And then it's a 1K as well, which is great. So like a 3-3 split between Toki and Beige, I think makes sense as well. I do like the idea of like the 2-drop or the Trafalgar Law. I took a minute to get kind of sold on this, but I do end up liking it, especially because it does help you recycle some cards and help you get your leader effect on point. X-Drake is a really strong card at 2, especially if you're running Bonnie to help you find your packages for the Supernovas. Kid at 3 is great. I think like especially like in the mirror match, this is a pretty good card for you. And then the Koizuki Odin. It's just so hard running this at any less than 4 because you always want to see it on curve, but once you see 1, you never want to see it again. So So I understand 3 there, and then 1 Paradise Waterfall and 1 Point Gibson, which again, I don't know. Green. This deck is always just in a tough spot in my mind. I played it quite a bit, and I always feel like there was either like some sequence, like I could never like really play the cards as much as I wanted to, or it's hard to leave Dawn open, and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a balance on a lot of stuff. So I'd say this is a pretty safe build, in the fact that like the ratios just mean like you do potentially have options to see what you need when you see it, which is nice, and I'm pretty sure that's happened with Jonathan as well. So that is the second place list. Congrats again to Jonathan for their finish there. Next up, we have Nuno with Edward Newgate, and I don't have a lot to say about this guy. I think it's pretty understood that this is probably one of the best, if not the best deck in the format right now. Not a lot of wiggle room for choices, but the I'd say like at this point, most of these decks are about 40 cards the same, at least the Strawbeard version of it, because the Moby Dick version pretty much hasn't popped up since the first couple weeks of the format, which is interesting. But being able to just have your big attackers and being able to drop them down, so your Luffy's, your Frankies as well. You have your Monkey D. Luffy as well. This card's actually still pretty cracked in this leader. If you play it on curve, if you end up going first, and then you just have a rush card, and then if they don't get rid of it, which again, if this is a 6K and you're like, if most of your attacking cards are 6Ks, they have to attack into your leader or your battle cards, and it's the same defense for either, which is really crazy. And then running the Ace and the Newgate. Not everyone runs Newgate, honestly, which I get, but I think it's a good 4 of right there too. And that is the list here. I don't have much more to say. Vista at 3, Monkey D. Luffy. Yeah, just kind of understood there. So there is that one. And then next up we have Zephyr. So this is Nikolaus's version of it here. And honestly, it's really neat to see Zephyr. I like this leader a lot going into the format. I think it was a little bit slow for how much Zoro and stuff we were saying, unfortunately. And maybe it has like a pretty good matchup against Newgate. I'd have to really try. I didn't really play against much of the Straw Beard version of it. And, technically you do have a lot of blockers, and you do have a lot of ways to make this deck a little bit slower, or make the game a little bit slower, because essentially Newgate starts losing if you're able to slow them down enough where they have to get down to 0 life by their own leader effect, and then you just kind of punish them from there. So I do like the idea of this deck, and like you obviously want to try to go second, to try to go up to your chain. To pretty much go to Kuzan with Z just means you get 2 pops once you get there, and you just kind of keep going from there as well. Thunderbog was nice for some potential ramp too, and just in general, like this is a really fun deck in what you're doing. And once you drop your Kuzan, you can use the Kuzan with the leader effect, and then use that. So Dawn -4, KO 3 or less. So this pops a 5 or less, and then your leader pops an 8 or less, and then you just keep going. Unfortunately for like Newgate, they have a big 9 drop a lot of the time, so that is neither 8 or less or 5 or less. So you would need some kind of additional way. So maybe if you had like a Dashiki out that you could then like pop the next turn, or if you had a Kuzan already out that you can attack with, and then drop the other Kuzan and get the pop on there, I think that could get some value for you too. But I don't know. I think this deck is really fun. It's a really interesting, cool deck. It's probably a little bit slow consistently at times, but when it goes off, it's really, really fun. So congrats again to Nikolaus for their finish there. We also do have a deck list that wasn't properly scaled. Crazy. All right. We do have, this is Kyle Kemper's Trafalgar Law list. And we've been seeing Law sometimes pop up every once in a while. I really do like what Law offers for this game right now. And honestly, I think the trickiest part for this deck is just kind of how the colors kind of end up, because like you have like your, what is it? You have like the fact that like your top end is green, but like most of your good searchers are for red, which stinks, because like your Curly Dan can find Nami, which can find at most a Zoro in this. So I think like it might benefit the deck to have like another like red top end, strictly just to have something to bounce into, because I just had too many times like my Nami wouldn't find anything, and then I just feel kind of bad about that. So that might be something I would experiment with in this one, is that again, like if you find your Bonnie, then you're set. That's going to find at one of your 2 Trafalgar Laws, and you'll probably be good from there. But if you don't get that, then sometimes you're just like, you're hoping like, oh, like the top end I can find with Nami is Zoro, which is kind of stinky at times. In general, though, this is a very strong deck if it goes off, and I think it can potentially have a good Newgate matchup. And the fact that this deck is kind of, very, very defensive with the blockers that you're able to put out and everything else, it kind of does slow the game potentially. So I think that's something to consider for this deck too. But congrats again to Kyle for their finish. And to finish it on up, oh gosh, I did it again. That's crazy. We do have Magellan here from Christopher. This is definitely like a deck that I've been playing a lot more of lately. I think it is pretty fun for what you're doing. There's a couple interesting choices for this one. Deciding to run the ulti page 1 combo, which honestly this does come up sometimes. Being able to play 2 cards on the board, I think, is actually pretty good. Using the Shiru and then also the Douglas Bullet for some potential like. Honestly, you just want cards that have like good effects for Dawn 1 to pop down every turn after your 5 Dawn turns. So I think that's something that's possible with this deck. And then top end, we have the Uta and the Kaido as well. My only issue with Kaido is that like after like if you play Magellan and then like every turn you want to do a Dawn minus effect, it's going to be actually kind of tough to get into your Kaido some of the time. So that's something you have to consider, especially since you're probably also using Hell's Judgment a lot on the defense side. But if you're able to drop and establish a Kaido, it probably feels pretty good. It just feels like compared to the actual like Kaido list, since you're not playing Onigashima Island, and since you're usually doing Dawn -1 throughout the turns just to get up to there, it just takes a long time to be able to get 9 Dawn to be free for this. And if you're doing that, like you have to give up a lot for it. So that's my only issue. Uta the same way. I've been testing with Uta. I don't think I like it enough to include it in the deck, but I do agree like you need some kind of top end for this deck, and I'm just not sure exactly what it is. But I do think Magellan is strong. I think it does have a very strong Newgate, like a above average Newgate matchup too, so that's something to consider. And that is going to be it. So that's going to be the breakdown for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Again, make sure to follow Stage Zero on YouTube so you guys can catch the finals of our circuit next week. And that will be it for me. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.